Hey, everybody, this is Drew McClellan from Agency Management Institute. Super glad you're here. If you're familiar with AMI, we're glad to have you here. Glad to offer this as a continuing benefit of being in part of the AMI community. If you're not familiar with us, let me just give you a quick overview of sort of what AMI is, and then I'm going to turn this over to Kathleen. So I would think of AMI as sort of a for-profit association that is dedicated to helping agency owners run the business of their business better. So we acknowledge and recognize that most agency owners are accidental business owners, and that you were at some point in time super good at something in an agency and copywriting, art direction, account service, and next thing you know, you have an agency and you've got some employees, and all of a sudden you're trying to figure out how to run the business of the business. And so that's where we focus, is on everything kind of back of house. So finance, HR, biz dev, technology, innovation, like our webinar today. So it's really about the people, it's about leadership, it's about systems and process, it's about making more money and keeping more of the money you make, all those kind of things. And we serve agencies in a plethora of ways, starting with free events like this. We have membership models where you can get some member-only content. We have peer groups like a Vistage group or an EO group that come together to learn from each other and from us. We teach workshops. We teach about 10 workshops a year, all aimed at things like, we have a workshop called Money Matters, and we have a workshop called Running Your Agency for Growth and Profit, and things like that. So if you're not familiar with us, head over to agencymanagementinstitute.com and check things out, or feel free to shoot me an email at some point in time. Hey, I hear somebody is not muted, so I'll go back and keep doing that. But it will be great if you can stay muted, other than Kathleen. If you have questions while Kathleen is talking, it would be awesome if you put them in the chat. I'll be keeping a close eye on the chat and then interrupting Kathleen when it feels like it's appropriate. And then at the end, hopefully we'll also have some time for you to ask questions. And at that point, you probably can unmute and ask those questions. But for the most part, if you can stay muted while Kathleen is talking, because the room is getting awfully full and I can't scroll through all of you quick enough to figure out who's talking. So, all right, with that, Kathleen, I'm going to hand it off to you and let you jump into the content.
Great. So I am Kathleen Perley. I found Drew as an accidental agency owner at one point. Had a very similar experience. Am a huge technical nerd and somehow ended up owning my own agency. At our largest, we were about 70 employees. I recently sold my firm back in April, and now am leading innovation. So really am excited to share with you guys how I've found AI to be useful and how it can be useful in your organizations. We have a lot to cover today, and I have a lot to share. So I hope you guys have some caffeine and are ready to nerd out with me today, but we'll just dig in. And as Drew mentioned, put questions in the chat. Find me on LinkedIn if you have other ones, if we don't get to all of them as well. So today we're focused on, our last AI webinar, we focused on how to set the foundation for AI in your agency. Today we're going to be focused on building that AI toolbox, if you will. So we'll cover, how to understand the AI landscape, and really understanding the different tools that are available and kind of how that all works together. How to evaluate AI tools, so certain types of things to think about, questions to ask when you're kind of evaluating different AI tools. And then we'll dig into the fun part, which is 25 of my top favorite AI tools that I use. I try to get a wide smattering of things because I know a lot of agencies specialize in different things. So these are tools that I've used, that I've loved, and or some of my peers and colleagues have as well. So before we dig in, I really want to talk about the power of AI in your workforce. And, I think what's really interesting, there's so many different things that are out there in terms of the potential GDP value of AI and things of that nature. But this study is actually one of my favorites that I use all the time when I'm talking to individuals. And it's a study that was done by Ethan Mollick, who is, in my opinion, like the GOAT of AI. I absolutely adore him. And his work with Harvard Business School, as well as it's Boston Consulting Group. And what they did is a study on knowledge workers, right? So how does AI help knowledge workers, like many of our teammates, in our agencies. And so what they did is they gave this consulting, Boston Consulting Group, they gave half the consultants access to AI, and the other kind of control group did not have access to AI. And they got the same challenge that they typically get when they're doing a consulting initiative. And what they found was that those who had access to AI finished their tasks about 12.2% faster than those who didn't. They were able to complete about 25% more. And they were also able to produce 40% higher quality work or results. And so when you think about AI, oftentimes I hear this comment that, you know, the quality is going to suffer if we're leveraging AI technology. And what this really shows is not only are they able to get stuff done faster, they're able to do more in terms of creating efficiency, it actually is helping elevate some of that work. And one of the most interesting parts of the study that they did was with that group who had access to AI, they actually did what I'll call like a benchmark analysis and really identified prior to the AI utilization, you know, who were the top performers and who were the bottom performers. And then after, with the use of AI, how were they able to perform? And what's really interesting is AI actually helped what we call like the bottom performers by 43%. Whereas their A players or their top performers still saw an improvement, but it was only about 17% of an improvement overall. And so when you think about this, and I think what's so impactful about this is when you think about maybe somebody who's more green in your organization or somebody who's moved from one industry to the niche industry that you serve as an agency, is the ability to upskill those people quicker is going to be huge when you're leveraging AI. And so the potential that this unlocks in terms of who you hire, who you bring on your team, how to make sure that you're, you know, as an agency owner myself in the past, right? I had my A players, my B, and sometimes my C, depending on if Drew and I had talked recently where he would say, why do you keep holding on to some of those C players? And this helps kind of level up that skill set from that perspective. And so when you think about that power, I think it's important to understand what AI really is. And if you Google what is AI, or if you use ChatGPT to define what is AI, there's so many different definitions, but I found that this is probably my favorite. This is from the founder and CEO of DeepMind, who is kind of the godfather, if you will, of AI. DeepMind has been around for decades and has been really focused on AI and, you know, started with, you know, the chess game. And if a robot or machine or computer could beat a human in chess. And their definition is AI, or artificial intelligence, is the science of making machines smart. And I think it's really important. It's the idea, right? It's not about having machines do or perform certain root tasks that we give specific instructions to. It's about ensuring in a way that AI and artificial, and what really differentiates AI from automation is that ability to be smart or to be thinking. There is a study that was leaked from OpenAI that came out and right towards the end of the year, where they actually found that if you gave AI more time to respond, right, in terms of provide its output, it actually improved significantly that output, meaning that the AI in a way is thinking and analyzing its response and revising it, right? So this idea of the machine thinking is kind of interesting, and that's what really differentiates AI and automation. So when we talk about typical automation software, because sometimes that line can be blurred and some people will say this is AI and it really is automation, is the fact that AI or automation does not adapt or improve unless a human is involved in modifying its rules or instructions. So it has very strict rules and paths that are set that it follows. And so it can adapt if a new data set is integrated that doesn't follow those formulas specifically. And a lot of marketing automation, while it makes our lives easier in terms of emails being sent after 3 business days and things of that nature, it does require a lot of significant manual labor to implement and continue to update. AI software, on the other hand, it has base instructions and rules, but then it leverages like reasoning to solve strategic problems at scale. So if it receives something that's slightly different in terms of a data set, it takes those assets and adapts it based on its knowledge base. So just like a human, where you're saying this is a slightly different scenario, but last time I had this happen, this is a slightly different type of customer or a client that we're targeting to. So it will take its knowledge and make adaptations to that in real time without human interaction. one of the best examples I give to kind of differentiate the two is a car road trip, right? I have two young kids, so I'm on a lot of car road trips, and think of marketing automation as, or automation in general as, I go to my Google Maps and I say, I'm in Houston and I want to go to Disneyland or Disney World. And it will tell me how to get from point A to point B. Now, if I say, hey, I need to go to the bathroom, my kids are crying in the back and they need to go potty break because we just potty trained them, it might give me a bathroom or a restroom stop that's behind me. And if you're a parent like me, there's no way we're turning around. Like, we're not going back. We're not going back. So when you think about AI, it knows that I will not turn back, and it will actually find what's the nearest restroom, continuing on my route and not going backwards. So when you think about the difference, it's really this idea of AI being a co-pilot or a for you, right? And that's why I think Microsoft capitalized on that term of co-pilot, because that's really the difference between AI and automation. And so you'll see some of that. And if you kind of really judging some of these tools, you'll say, no, that's more automation than true AI. And when we talk about kind of the different features, I think one thing important to realize and leverage, and I'm going to use this car analogy or continue this car analogy, is AI has been around for a long time. But what we're really seeing is, while there's been advancements in technology and innovation, what we're really seeing is a huge revolution as it pertains to user experience and usability. So UX and UI. Right. And so when you think about every AI that you interact with, you think about it in the terms of, you have this new interface that has democratized, right? I don't have to be a physicist or a mathematician to leverage AI. I can be somebody who doesn't know how to sling Python code on a regular basis and all these other things to leverage it. And so what I like to kind of use this analogy is, for example, with Bard, if you're familiar with Google's kind of competitor to ChatGPT, Bard is the steering wheel, right? That is what we interface with as users, but there is an engine that powers Bard, a foundational language model that keeps that moving. And for Bard, it's called PaLMs, which is a pathway language model that powers the input or the outputs for Bard. So if you continue that analogy, right, before, if I didn't have a steering wheel in a car, I would almost have to be a mechanic to drive my car and have to interact with the engine. Now with a steering wheel, I don't have to have that much kind of connection between the two. So that gives you kind of a brief overview of AI. And then when we look at the landscape, it is changing very rapidly, but I kind of try to put it into these 4 core boxes. So you have the AI wrapper solutions, which means they're leveraging existing models. They didn't build their own, and they really make it easy to integrate. AI PRM is one that I use a lot, which I would consider an AI wrapper. It actually is an extension that helps with prompting. It's really great. Definitely recommend checking that out. You then have these generative AI native and narrow solutions. So these were AI tools or software or companies that were born and originated as an AI tool, and are typically more for narrow use cases. So we'll talk about some of these. So Writer is obviously more about writing, given the name. Pictory is more video focused, so they're more narrow in its utilization or application. You then have core platforms that have new functionality. So Zoom is a prime example of this, right? We've used Zoom for years. They're now integrating AI into its functionality and features as it pertains to note-taking and things of that nature. This is really important, and you'll hear a little bit more about this later, but one of the biggest things that we see in terms of AI success within an agency or any organization is change management and adoption. So if there are core software or technology that your agency is already using that's starting to integrate AI, that's a great one to tap into. And then last but not least is what I think we're starting to see, this is emergence of what I'll call the big hub or the big gorillas in the room that really are started out more as a foundational model, didn't have a ton of UX UI built into it, but are really starting to play in the space as being ultimately for enterprises or organizations or agencies, their core AI tool. So think Azure, think OpenAI, who really started not off as a software company, but are really adapting to become one. OpenAI in the fall or Q4 released their like storefront, where you can actually sell custom GPTs to others through their platform. So you're starting to see them start to operate, not just as a research lab, but really how do we transition this into more of an enterprise software, and what can we learn from those organizations? So that's a lot, like a very high and fast overview of AI, but I think it's really important and sets the foundation in terms of how you evaluate these different tools. And so when we go into evaluating different tools, I think the first and foremost is to start with the problem you're looking to solve, or the objective or goal that you're wishing to solve. And I know in our last webinar, we talked about that kind of outline or template that I use to talk about what is the challenge or business issue that I'm looking to solve, what is the potential value, what is the change management impact, things of that nature. Because it's very easy to get excited about all the sexy new tools and end up with an arsenal of thousands of tools, but really at the end of the day, not solving the objectives that we're wanting to. So really start with that. I think the second piece is looking at your current tool set. We talked about that in the last slide, about those who are starting to integrate AI like Zoom, right? So make sure and evaluate and have those conversations to see if there are opportunities that already exist within a tool set that your team or your organization or your clients are already familiar with. The third one is there's going to be lots of trial and error. If you were into this space and you heard all of the feedback and noise on Google Duet and its rollout and its demo video not being 100% accurate and things of that nature, it is really hard to evaluate from a demo reel or even a video if this is going to solve your unique use cases. So it is going to take a lot of trial and error. The next one is keep your options open. This is a fast evolving space. So one of the things that we really try to do is, even though it's probably more expensive at times to go month to month, depending on the tool, we do that so that we have that flexibility. So for example, you'll see Supernormal is an AI note-taking tool that I've used in the past. We went month to month because we were hopeful that Zoom would come up quickly and be able to replace. So we're not paying for 2 different software subscriptions and having to maintain integration. It automatically does that. And last but not least is what is the M2M score, our marketer to machine score. This is actually from the Marketing AI Institute, which is an amazing resource. So definitely recommend looking into that. But as we evaluate the tools, as you evaluate them from an organizational standpoint, thinking about, okay, if I'm using this tool, how much is still being needed from the human or the marketer in my organization, and how much is leveraging the machine? And there isn't necessarily a right answer. I think it's very dependent on the use case, but we've always focused on making sure that at the end of the day, our value as an organization to our partners as an agency and our subject matter experts are the reason why we're able to push the AI to get the outputs that we want and verify that we're getting the right stuff from those AI tools. So just something to keep in mind as you're going through that. I've also included a list of questions here. I won't go into every single one of them, but I do want to call out a few that are important. One is, a lot of these AI tools and software came to market very quickly. They are built by a lot of very smart and technical nerds like me, but they are smarter than me actually, but they don't have the understanding of onboarding or support materials. And one of the things that I've seen when AI fails in terms of implementation is because of a lack of change management and training that's involved, right? I've had people who come to me that says, oh, ChatGPT doesn't work. I just can't able to get what I need out of it. And I think the real lack there is not that the tool doesn't work, but just not knowing how to prompt it, how to engage with it, what it's good at versus what it's not is key. And if you're a small agency, I mean, I was, at my largest, we were 70, but at times we were, 20, 16. A lot of organizations might not have the ability to have a full-time AI or chief innovation officer. So making sure and asking the questions like, do you have training materials accessible? Do you have videos? Do you offer any live training as part of our subscription? Things of those are really, really important. The other thing I would call out is I often will ask, what's on the product roadmap? And you might not get it all the time, but asking, hey, what features are going to be rolled out next? So as you're evaluating all your tools, you're like, oh, I was going to use 11 Labs and Pictory. Oh, great. 11 Labs and Pictory have partnered. perfect, I can centralize that and have a lot more feasibility. The other one I would definitely want to make sure that you're thinking about is integration. So does this integrate or API in easily to my other software? Wait, we talk about change management. So if I'm looking at a sales AI enablement, does it integrate into Salesforce? Because that's what my team uses or my client's team uses. So these are
Kathleen,
some.
Kathleen,
Yeah.
somebody added in the chat. Another thing is to ask about the security protocols. Is your information shared in a resource pool or isolated to your company, for instance? Some of those are following a broad resource pool approach.
Yes, that is very key. That is something we always ask. The other thing is it's not only about is my data going to be used for others, but also what data was the AI model trained on, and is any of that data considered potentially copyright, right? So one of the things that's kind of interesting right now that I'm actually looking at, and the nice thing about some ChatGPT stuff is they're identifying users. But some of the code base that the AI models were trained on, there is debate on whether or not that is proprietary or not. Therefore, could they have a claim if you were to use AI to write code from scratch as their intellectual property versus your own? So, for example, we've provided guidelines for our developers. You can use it to explain code, synthesize code, debug code, translate it, things of that nature, but you can't use it to write from scratch code unless it's like a footer that we don't really care about. So that's a great thing, and that is definitely something that we look at for sure. So now that we've kind of talked about just the landscape, different questions and things to think about as you're evaluating the tools, now it's time for the fun part, which is 25 AI tools in hopefully less than 20 minutes. So we're going to move fast through this. I've created a key and really kind of broke this out, not only based on price point per month, but also kind of some data security concerns, whether it's, there are some data concerns that need to be looked in further, to very secure tool that ensures that either your data is not training other models or like kind of a larger resource pool, or indemnity on copyright and things of that nature. And then obviously some of these tools, they don't publicly share that information. So it's something you have to contact on. So we have that for both from a pricing and security standpoint. I will caveat that at most of these tools have different levels. And so pricing and security change, or the security lockdown changes based on those. So definitely don't take this as Bible in terms of security, and definitely take a second look at all of these as well. So we're going to start fast and furious. My favorite AI tool that I use on a regular basis is ChatGPT. I'm often asked, I don't have a ton of time to explore and experiment with AI tools. Which one should I start with? Spend the $20 on ChatGPT Plus or Premium. I think it's changed its name twice. There are so many features beyond just the kind of generative chat that you experience on the regular side, but access to Bing, in terms of doing real-time research or synthesizing web pages and things of that nature, to code interpreter or advanced data analysis is what it's now called, which allows you to upload data, ask it questions, ask it to do visualizations, translate code, nature. And it's also has started to create the ability, they've integrated DALL-E 3 into ChatGPT Premium. So you have the ability to iterate based on the visualizations, which is a huge benefit, given DALL-E before you had to give a prompt, generate the image, go back, regenerate your prompt based on the things that you wanted to change to try to get a better answer or image out of it. And there's a few other things here. It is very cost effective, very secure. They do not, depending on the level of the platform you're on, they do not train on your data. They provide identification. One thing that has come out very recently is I've used primarily enterprise, but you do have access, which was 150 users plus. But they've just recently released ChatGPT Teams, which means you only have to have 2, and I think it's about $35 a month. So for those smaller to mid-sized agencies, this allows sharing of templates, custom GPTs, things of that nature that just make the ability to really ensure a lot of collaboration across your team. The next one is Super Normal. This is a note-taking AI tool, has a lot of really great resources. I loved how it gave you a gist, action items, and summary, as well as a full transcription. One thing to note on this, just if you are going to use it, if there is a free version, if you use the free version, know that it will send your notes to everyone that was on the meeting invite, so you don't have control over that, whereas on the paid version you do. So be careful of what you say before everyone else joins the call, because you want to be mindful of that. And obviously you don't want to be using AI tools for note-taking in very sensitive topics like HR or finance that you don't want potentially everyone to hear, or legal. The next one is Pictory AI. This is one I use a lot. It does text to video creation. It has access to different libraries that you can pull in. I've done a couple of, I'm awful at video editing, and as you can hear, I talk very fast and have some ums. So it has an AI tool that actually will do filler words. It will automate all of that pieces for you, create highlight reels. So definitely take a look at Pictory AI. It's one of my favorites that I'm using. The next one is Scribe AI. This is great for creating documentation and processes, whether that's for onboarding for your employees, to as you're kind of transitioning or launching a website and you have to transition it back to a client team. There's a lot of time that it takes to kind of build all the documentation to turn it over. What this one does is it actually will do screen recordings, screen recording as you walk through it all, take screen captures of the different steps, and then actually create customized PDFs that have all the different steps with action items and screenshots on how to use it. So really love this. And one of the things, as somebody who sold an agency, one of the questions as part of the kind of due diligence process is, do you have documentation on your processes? And that was a big key, right? They want to know, if you're not here, does the agency still function? And so these process documentations are key, and Scribe makes it easy to get done.
Well, and for those of you agency owners that are trying to get out of the day-to-day, but you're often the bottleneck, this is also a great way for you to add value to the agency without you having to physically be there or be accessible.
Yeah. All right, let's see my computer. Zoom, we're on Zoom. So this is a Zoom one. And this one is really great. I mean, it does all the things, right? If you are, not that anyone on this call would do any multitasking whatsoever, but in the event that you are, you can ask the AI companion to say, hey, can you catch me up on what I missed? Or somebody says, Kathleen, what's your thoughts? You can be like, hey, AI, tell me what was said right before then, so I can understand, or summarize what was just been said, so I can understand how to jump back in and not look like I was doing 5 things. But the other thing that I really like about Zoom AI is not only the note-taking and all of that, but kind of presentation skill feedback. Both my parents are from New York, New Jersey. I talk fast. It's something that I try to monitor. So as you think about the ability, especially for your younger team members who are trying to build that confidence, the talk to listen ratio, their longest spiel, their talk speed, it really does help people become better presenters. So not only does it do all the things that, other note-taking tools do, it just is really integrated and really also can be beneficial as you think about career development as well. Raza.io is a newsletter AI tool that I really enjoy. This one's really interesting. It's actually something I'm evaluating for my Rice MBA AI class, because what you can do, and if you're, Drew has always told us, content, building the deer food, getting those niche things in for our audiences that we're trying to sell to. But if you're like an agency owner like I was, I don't have time to write 7 blogs a month and I have got 80 other things to do. But what's nice about this tool is you can actually say, for example, in my Rice MBA class, I'm going to write a couple blogs a month. Here's an RSS feed to my blog, but I also am a huge fangirl of Ethan Mollick. So here's an RSS feed to his blog. And then here's an RSS feed to this AI website that talks about acquisitions. And so it actually will provide different snippets of all the different things it gets. You can kind of determine which ones that the AI tool will have access to in terms of developing newsletters. And then it'll personalize. So if Drew is on my AI newsletter, and is constantly clicking on M&A activity within the AI space, it'll actually start to send him more of that information, but I can still dictate that he also has to see my 2 custom written articles on top of everything else. So you really do become that trusted resource. So really, really awesome tool on that end. Microsoft 365 Copilot is powered by GPT-4. Some of it's still on 3.5, depending on the tool. I've played around with it a little bit. I do think it's better than what I'm seeing on Duet, which is Google's kind of counterpart to this. It works really well with Word, Outlook, and PowerPoint. I think it's still lacking on the Excel side. I do think kind of advanced data analysis is better within GPT or environment, GPT-4 environment. So this takes away, right, when you think about adoption, this takes away the clunkiness or that extra friction point of having to like copy and paste things from GPT-4 into these different platforms and then reformat so that you can send it. So definitely look at that one. Another AI tool that I've used a lot is Midjourney. It is a data or more of the image visualization. I've used it for mood boards, UX, UI, like wireframes, mockups, things of that nature. It is a little bit more of a learning curve than some of the other AI tools, but it's great if you're heavily focused on that. I know there's probably a lot of questions as it pertains to copyright. So the thing that I found it to be really successful with is when I'm talking to a client, and you always hear the saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and they're trying to tell you what they're thinking in your head. The ability to go to something like this and say, hey, prompt it and say like, can you draw something up like this? And then turn around to a client and say like, is this what you're thinking? Really helps kind of reduce the rounds of revisions, get things moving. We're not using it for any what I'll call like final ads or mock like final visualizations, but we are using it as a way to like help streamline that process. Canva is another one. Obviously, I'm sure if there's any creatives on this call, you might be cringing. There is Adobe Firefly, which is also really good. But if you're an agency that's doing a lot of social media, or you have people in your organization that aren't necessarily creative but have to put together good decks or things of that nature, Canva has what they call Magic Design, which is their AI tool that does a lot of great things in terms of presentations, video editing, being able to expand a background that doesn't exist, and things of that nature, as well as some video editing features. Now, I wouldn't say it's the best at video editing, but it does have some of those features if you're just using it for some spots here and there, not as heavily. Ally AI is a SEO AI tool. This is one where I tell you it's a lot of trial and error, and I'm here to say that I've been through it. It's one of the things I love most about it is when you think about the AI revolution, it goes from, the idea of not only telling you what you need to be doing, but this idea of what we're going to be seeing next was AI being an agent and actually taking action on it. So the thing that I love most about Ally AI is the ability, for example, if I need to update alt image tags on a bunch of 200 images across a website, I am able to actually use AI to identify which ones need updates, add, modify. They will generate all the alt image tags. I can modify those, approve some of those, and it actually will make those changes in the website itself. I don't have to leave Ally AI to get those done. Now, it lacks a little bit when it comes to like e-commerce clients or clients that aren't more national focused, but it does have a lot of features in terms of, I have now SEO teams that don't have to get into the back end of a website. It makes it easier, reduces a little bit more friction on that end. Another AI tool is, from a video perspective, is Runway. This is what I'll call the creme de la creme when it comes to video editing. So if you're an agency that does a lot of videos, I would definitely look at Runway because you can do kind of more custom AI training on it. It's a little bit more advanced in some of the things as it pertains than Pictory AI, but so I would definitely recommend this. It's a little bit more pricier as well. So wanted to provide a couple of options for you guys on that sense. The next one is Optimove, which is a CDP with AI functionality. So what's really interesting about CDPs and how AI can help influence
what does CDP stand for?
CDP is a customer data platform. So think about it like CRM on steroids. So CRMs typically are more focused on email communications, things of that nature. CDPs is what I'll call like they create these golden data records, if you will, for your users or your audiences, and will actually translate across an omni-channel. So it'll customize their email messages. It'll customize the website experience when they come to your site. It'll maybe touch on social and change their social media experience in terms of ads that they're seeing. It'll do different types of text messaging. And so this AI enabled CDP is actually helping to really kind of enhance that experience, do more predictive modeling, testing, the ability to chat and ask questions on some of the data that you have in there as well. The interesting thing is we see from a CDP standpoint, right? CRM to CDP movement and deployment has been like kind of very cumbersome over the years in terms of being able to having to get clean data, which is like the biggest oxymoron I've ever heard in terms of clean data. But the ability to, when you have AI integrated into CDPs, my biggest favorite part about this is I don't have to worry about the data schema to do imports, right? So if I have first name in one column and last name in one column from one data set, but the next data set, it's name and first name and last name are in the same column, the ability to leverage AI to understand that and ensure that uploads are clean are huge. Now, this does this automatically in the system, but I will also tell you, right, you can build custom GPTs in ChatGPT and build an ETL process that does the same thing. So it's a very interesting space for sure. The next one, and I see this a lot when we hear about AI, is the ability to utilize AI from a chatbot perspective. Chatfuel is, I think, one of the, what I would say is the leader in this space, and it allows you to help from a sales perspective, customer management. One of the interesting things about Chatfuel that I like is that it captures that data for you for future use as it pertains to marketing and advertising. I will say, if you've been kind of staying up to date on AI and some interesting news headlines, there is this instance where I think it was a dealership had an AI chatbot that sold a car at a price that it would never accept, but it happened. So you definitely have to put some parameters on these things. And another one is they actually got a chatbot to write Python code for them because they knew it was powered by AI and had a much larger knowledge set than what was loaded into it. Trellis, this is for all of our e-commerce agencies on here. Trellis is an AI tool that really helps in doing pricing modeling. It actually will use AI to test different prices and optimize for profit based on inventory and analyzing that, as well as suggesting like advertising campaign optimizations for seasonality, promotions within Amazon storefronts and things of that nature. So if you are an e-commerce agency or have clients in this space, it is a little bit on the pricier side, but it's a really fascinating tool in terms of like the real-time analysis and optimizations and turnover as it pertains to carts and things of that nature. So definitely would look at Trellis. The next one is 11 Labs. So 11 Labs is kind of a voice AI, like from a modeling perspective, is focused more on the voice side. So it can create different voices for different use purposes. So whether it's an educational one or an audio book, it'll kind of adjust the voice. You have a lot more control on like emotion, inflection, things of that nature. You can clone your own voice. As somebody who hates to hear their own voice, I don't know why you would do that, but in theory, I wouldn't have to record myself all the time. I could just upload the scripts or things of that nature, and it actually would use my voice tonality and things of that in the past and actually make it sound like I read it itself. This is if you're, have concerns about AI and some of the security and issues that could come around this. This is where we talk about deep fakes from that perspective in terms of clone voice. But 11 Labs is what I'll call the premier voice platform in terms of AI technology. The next one is probably the opposite in terms of premier, in terms of fanciness. This is one of my favorites and kind of silliest ones. It's called Silly Tavern. It is an AI tool that is used primarily for role-playing games. So think Dungeons and Dragons, like super nerdy stuff. But I've used it to do synthetic focus groups and some fun things like that. It's not super secure, so wouldn't upload anything super private. It has a little bit of learning curve. There is also character AI. I prefer Silly Tavern. I think I get better responses from Silly Tavern than I do character AI. But character AI is a little bit more user-friendly from that perspective and more professional or enterprise, if you will. So that's a fun one. The next one is Trender AI. This is great for your sales team or you, if you're, Drew always told me 50% of my time should be spent on business development. But as an agency owner, sometimes it's hard, right? And every minute you spend in business development, you want to have the highest ROI in terms of closing. So this AI tool, the few things I really like about this is it leverages kind of, if you think about it from a ABM model or account-based marketing sales model, right? You have pinpointed prospects that you're going after. It would, for example, read Drew's LinkedIn and tell me not just that Drew loves Disney World and has lots of dogs and cats that he fosters and pets, but it would actually do and leverage tools like DISC, Ocean, Myers-Briggs to help me understand his communication style, if he has any potential cognitive bias, personality, so that I can really customize my sales approach to really something that will align with him and work for him. So it tells you all the other important things that you need to know, but actually gives you more of an insight into how to connect with them. And it integrates, and it will do custom emails and all that other stuff that all the other AI tools in the sales space do, and it does integrate. So something to look at if you are focused on the sales side, it is kind of a really fun tool. The next one is Brand24. This is that, we talk about those buckets and kind of categories. This is a tool that existed. I used as a social media for a number of my clients and brand reputation, online reputation management. It is now integrated with AI. What's really great about this one is that it helps you uncover trends. So a lot of reputation management will tell you, this is when your client's brand's being mentioned, things of that nature. This will actually identify opportunities that using AI and predictive modeling to really help you be kind of more on the forefront. So if you're a big social agency or online reputation, this is definitely a tool to look at. Beacons.
So Kathleen, meaning it would tell you where to jump into a conversation. Like this would be a good conversation for you to jump into. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And then Beacons AI, I'm still on the social train here. So if you are an agency that focuses on some influencers and or small businesses where you have a kind of a core individual who is the face, this is great for those Instagram influencers who are need a custom like link bio page that helps them go to all their, like to know it, Amazon storefronts, things of that nature. It does online store kind of integrations, and it does help develop pitch books. So if you are in that space where you're kind of doing more, maybe a little bit more on the PR side or more social influencer marketing, this is a tool to definitely look into from that perspective. And this is one where it's, from a security standpoint, I would say it is a little bit more loose. But a lot of the stuff is they're posting on them about themselves, so it's already public. So is there concern? That would be something you would need to talk about with your clients from that perspective. Murf AI is another kind of text speech AI voice cloning similar to 11 Labs. A little less expensive, a little bit less secure from a security standpoint, but offers a lot of the same functionality as 11 Labs. So would recommend testing and piloting both. I prefer 11 Labs over this one, but something definitely to consider as you're going through it. This is probably one of my favorites. This is kind of more of a data analysis one. So this allows you, it's kind of like advanced data analysis on steroids. So it allows you to upload data, have generative AI to help chat with your data, ask it questions, provide feedback, generate charts. It can actually help you generate dashboards. It will employ machine learning for different opportunities to make accurate predictions. The other thing that I really like about this is if you are not a coder or developer by training, it does allow you to deploy and develop your own machine learning strategies to that don't require code. So it kind of opens up and democratizes that for us from that perspective. And then the other thing is that you can do a lot of chat data prep for intuitive data manipulation. So if you're like, hey, I'm looking at all this data. Oh, wait, somebody used Murph and loved it. That's awesome. Sorry, I opened up the chat now. My ADHD is kicking in.
Stay focused, Kathleen.
No, focus. This also helps. So if you're looking at a large data set from a research project and you're like, hey, I really want to understand, like theoretically, if we were to look at women between 35 and 40, do we start to see changes? And this allows you to do that before you have to go through all of the work in terms of filtering and pulling that stuff out. So definitely look at that. The next one is Ellie Analytics. And this one is kind of very similar to the previous one, but it is a little bit more user-friendly. A little bit more sales focused and really more focused in terms of marketing. The other one's more open-ended and can be used for research as well as sales. But this one does allow you to create custom dashboards. It integrates with Power BI as well as helps you do return on investment and customer cost of acquisition. So CAC data as well. Contentware is another one. This one does, if you think about it, like soup to nuts content marketing for you. So it'll develop a event page for you, the social media post, the email, like all the assets that you would need for a single event, for example. It will do the copywriting, it'll do your editorial calendars. It does integrate in from a social standpoint to different platforms and email to different platforms. One of the things I will tell you on this one, which is interesting, is this is something we were exploring before, but now that we have ChatGPT and more on the enterprise or premium level, you know, we're starting to say, like, I can actually create a custom GPT that does an editorial calendar through trial and error. It takes a little bit more upfront time, but then I don't have to manage so many different tools and platforms. But if you're a big content agency, it might make sense to keep using something like this. Celtra is another one. We've tried a number of different AI tools for ad versioning and things of that, and ad testing from a digital perspective. This one does, you know, I always hear my creatives, and I'm sure there's creatives on this call, right? They're probably my most resistant to AI because of, and I understand the fact that, you know, they concerns about what this does for their livelihood and their work and their passion. But the great thing about this is every time I talk to any creative and I'm like, well, what if I told you you never had to do ad resizes or display banners ever again? And when the client's like, what if we saw it in green? Or instead of these dumplings, let's do a salad. And you didn't have to do that work and we could use AI to do it for you. That's Celtra, right? So you can see it here, right? I can literally change the color. I can change the headline. I can change the image from a pasta to dumpling to CTA testing and things of that nature. So when our clients, and we're trying to be more competitive with the bigger agencies, we can offer a lot more A/B testing, and it's not that much more resources for your team because you're leveraging AI. And last but not least is Framer AI. This is a AI tool that helps you build websites from start to finish. They do look really professional. And if you're looking at something like Squarespace, I would say also look at Framer. Now, if you're doing like the initial thought was like, oh, I need to do a Sitecore website. Like, this is not Sitecore. This is not something, as you think about, like, heavy regulated industries. I work in healthcare a lot. So I would not put a healthcare website on Framer because of data security concerns, not around AI, but other things from that perspective, but something to consider. So that is a huge overview and my top 25 tools in under an hour. And I think I've left 9 minutes for questions.
All right,
so turn it over for
Kathleen,
questions.
if you will stop sharing, I will rapid fire the questions that are already in there. So everybody, I'm going to ask the ones that already were asked. So I love that you're an innovation officer. How do you stay up? How would you recommend we stay up on technology advances and tools when we're a much smaller shop?
So I think two things. I think one of the things I would do is Ethan Mollick is literally my favorite. Like I've met him once and I like completely fangirled over him, but just really brilliant, really brutally honest about the different tools and capabilities. So I would definitely follow him on LinkedIn. He has one useful thing is his blog. If I get some time, to it, I would definitely say use, like, I'm going to eventually get a newsletter out there summarizes things. The Marketing AI Institute also has some really great resources. They have a podcast every week that's really amazing and targeted to individuals like marketers and advertisers. So lean into that, and then start working on a cross-departmental focus group and have them do every cross-departmental AI focus group, or we have the cross-departmental AI council that we have. We start every meeting with a rapid fire. And there are probably people in your organization who are already passionate about this stuff that are constantly learning about it. So make them be the ones that help you stay up to date from that perspective.
Okay. Is it possible to set up walled AI for writing to protect confidentiality?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so ChatGPT Teams or Enterprise, you can kind of wall that off. Now, that being said, even when we still put parameters around it for our teams, right? Like I'm working on some rollouts on some stuff, and I was like, yes, it will not be shared for other, for the tool to be used for like resource share pulling from other organizations. But like, if everyone in an organization is using our Teams function of ChatGPT, please don't upload anything in terms of like salaries or PHI information, because technically the model could be trained and somebody could ask a question in a way that may elicit some information that would be sensitive that we wouldn't want to share. So there are
inside your organization.
Yeah, inside your own organization. And the likelihood would be low, but we're still cautioning against it. You know, whether it's if you work in finance, I wouldn't necessarily like have it de-identify, you know, PHI information, social security numbers. Like there's certain things that I would just in good faith just want to scrub, even though there are these parameters and securities in place, just to feel and sleep a little bit better at night.
Okay, so a bunch of you are asking about the recording. If you want the recording of this, and if you want to be notified when we're doing the next one, stick your email address in the chat, please. Okay, regarding Optimove, is there a good client example you could link to or share with how it's been used by an agency? Can you just think through that?
Yeah, so I personally, Optimove is one that a friend and a peer has recommended. I have not. We use different CDPs, but they all kind of operate the same. One example would be, I work in the healthcare space, so I'm going to give a healthcare example. So for example, if Drew, as an older male, when he to the healthcare website, may have, instead of seeing the overall, like maybe it's summer or near Valentine's Day, so we're gonna be promoting L&D because, you know, babies are happening. For Drew, that is maybe not as important as maybe something around heart health. So when he gets the homepage, he has
the hell
experience. then
I'm sorry, we're canceling the series with Kathleen.
No. So that's one of them. The other one is like looking at time and day partying and location. So for example, if you are a, you know, major health system and you have primary care and ERs and urgent cares, and you're going to a website trying to figure out something, it will show you the location that's closest to you, but it will also take into consideration what the time is in your time zone to figure out which facilities are open and modify that, as well as modify, you know, no shows for appointments and things of that nature. So it takes that full look of that like consumer experience and journey and really customizes it for them.
Okay, with all the tools, do you see that an agency can get a lot of this value from just custom GPT with all the subscription dollars piling up, especially if you have a large team?
Yes, I 100% do. That is our philosophy. That is my philosophy as well. There is so much features and functionality within GPT that you can really create a lot of what you're getting from other places through your own, as it pertains to building custom GPTs out, knowing how to use it and leverage ChatGPT in a really efficient manner. So I definitely think like you probably will ultimately have more than ChatGPT. So for example, like you might have ChatGPT in Runway, or there's a couple, or like the Trender thing, because it's doing some things like that. Using ChatGPT or the custom GPTs that you can build, templates, There's also some really cool, sexy stuff that you can do in terms of like Zapier. So you can actually have GPT, like create a chat GPT that does what you need it to, and then actually creates the action in terms of, seeing a social media comment on one of your clients' pages, referencing your response guide, drafting a response, and sending it to a Slack channel that your social media person can look at to verify to respond to. So there's a lot of things around that. Actually, that was going to be our next topic for our March webinar, is a deep dive on ChatGPT and a hands-on custom GPT, like how to build them in our next session, because I do think that is, if I were to recommend where to start or where to focus, that's where I would go.
Okay. Any recommendations for an Amazon or Netflix-like contextual behavioral content recommender for a website?
I'd have to look into that. There are a couple of tools that do that kind of organically. When you think of like Optimove, LA Analytics, like you could get that information out of there and then like in like Zapier, connect it through an API to automatically take those actions. But that would be one of them. So I'll look into that further, because that's a really interesting question. But a lot of them, that is what a CDP does, really. From that perspective, is it takes different, whether it's demographic data, past behavior data on their own site, to even third-party data that you're collecting on that user and creating those golden records. That is what Netflix and Amazon are using to create that personal experience for you. And that's all run through basically like a CDP.
Where do you think AI leadership should fall? Is it an ops thing or somewhere else inside an agency?
No, I think it's somewhere else inside an agency. And I think you tap somebody who has a focus in digital or has the experience of getting beaten up and testing things that don't work or fail or die within months of notice, like Thread. Anyone who like had their social team like rush to get on Thread and then it completely disappears to a certain extent, right? You want those resilient people who are hungry, who are interested in it, and partner them with somebody in operations. And if you have a developer or an IT team, like have them partner as a part of a governance council, but find somebody who is personable, because a lot of this is about change management and being able to understand what influences people and what will get them engaged, I think is so key to success.
How about the copyright of content produced with AI tools? We did a webinar with IP attorney Sharon Torek. She also has a toolkit for those of you that are looking for legal good ideas around AI templates and tools and what you should put in your master service agreement. She's got a great toolkit for all of that you can get. If you're an AI member, hopefully you've seen that we have a discount offered to you for that. So, but Kathleen, copyright, thoughts about that really quick? And then we have, I think that's the last question.
Yeah, I would say it is a gray area in this space, right? It's not that you don't own it. It's that no one really owns it, depending on who's interpreting the law, right? So if you are using AI to synthesize something you've already written, you could argue, well, that was my property first, and they just synthesized, the AI tool just synthesized it, therefore it's still mine. So there is like layers of gray. But I always, when I talk to my clients about it, right, I'm like, a social media post, an email, things of that nature, you're not trying to copyright that stuff anyways, right? You're using Shutterstock, and the 9 other competitors in your market are using the same image. Like, do you care, right? In that sense. Now, if you're doing a tagline, I would be very careful about how you're using AI and how it's being used. And so I really think about not only the tactics, but what is the use case or the end use case in terms of how we kind of navigate that conversation with our clients and just in general. Because yeah, if it's for like an organic social media post or even an organic social media ad, you're not copywriting that stuff to begin with. Now, if it's a tagline, we do not touch AI for the development of the tagline. We might touch it for research or synthetic focus groups or things of that nature, but not on the other side of it.
Yeah, just a reminder, somebody's asking us to send you Sharon Torek's toolkit. You have to buy it. So you go to legalandcreative.com. If you're an AMI member, we've sent out discount codes. If you can't find it, email us and we'll send it to you again, but I can't send it to you because you have to purchase it. Okay, wait, hang on. There's another question. Shoot, sorry, scrolled. Any recommendations for traditional and digital media buying, placement, tracking, etc.?
There's so many. Obviously, like when you think about like paid search, right? Google has AI integrated into it already. We played around with AdCreative.ai, which had some really cool features. And it worked well from like an optimization standpoint, but it didn't work well from a creative standpoint in terms of ad development. One of the things that we're exploring and something to consider is this idea around right, when you think about AI, right, the cost of AI oftentimes is pulled into based on computing power. And so if you're having AI constantly analyze and optimize in real time, it gets more and more expensive. So if you have the ability to do like, hey, we do many of these types of clients, let me upload all of my data across all of my clients and then analyze for best keywords, ad copy, negative keywords, things of that nature, and then leverage something like Akio or advanced data analysis to help you build a foundational template that is optimized for that industry would be great.
Okay, a couple of things. Cynthia from our team put in her email address. If you have questions, not AI questions, if you have questions about the webinar, when the recording's going to come, all of that, feel free to email her. If there are topics or things you'd like Kathleen to consider covering in the future, email Cynthia that. But do not email Cynthia and ask her about AI tools, because that's why we have Kathleen here. Another question, Kathleen. Any recommendations for AI that can be used to help with quarterly reporting for clients on overall digital marketing efforts, Google Analytics, social media, paid media, email campaigns, etc.?
Yeah, so Akio Ellie is also really good. That automatically creates its own dashboards. Those would be the two that I recommend, but also ChatGPT. One of the things I really like for it is, and you guys know this, right? I'll talk to the head of digital at an organization and they want to know cost per click, keywords, negative keywords, the whole thing. And then you're like, great. And they're like, oh, wait, now I have to take this to the CEO or the president or my boss. And you're like, we need a highlight, like an executive summary of this. ChatGPT is really good at helping you like synthesize that. And we're playing around, and I'm playing around with it in terms of being able to upload like data from Google AdWords and have it interface with my team so that they can ask the chatbot questions about the data and verify it. So it helps reduce their time in terms of understanding and finding insights from it. So would recommend those.
Okay, we are over the hour. So thanks everybody for being here. Kathleen, as always, thank you for sharing your smarts. Super grateful to have you as part of the AMI community and willing to share all that you know. We've got dates through June for these events. So when we send out the recording, we will also remind you of those dates. So again, if you want a copy of the recording and you want an email telling you when the next dates are, please make sure you put that in the chat before we say goodbye. So I'm going to wait a couple minutes. We would love to do that. So you're getting a lot of kudos in here, Kathleen. I don't know if you can follow the chat, but people are agreeing with Danielle and I that you're a smart cookie. So other than the old man comment, you're not going to chat about that later, but whatever.
Yes, and
anyway,
I appreciate
guys,
everyone sticking with me. I know the last one, if you guys were on the live version or saw the recording, turns out I was like felt really off, couldn't figure out why. Tested positive for COVID less than 6 hours later. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So if you saw my first webinar and was like, what the F? I appreciate you sticking with me and getting through that first one.
This is healthy, sane Kathleen. That's what you got this
Yes,
time.
healthy,
yes.
Sane is
well, okay.
Healthy.
Healthy for
we'll
sure. Go with healthy. Yes.
Healthy.
Anyway, we'll see you guys next month. It'll take us probably a few days. It'll be mid next week before we get this all taken care of and ready to send out. So watch your inbox. Also, we're talking about these in the newsletter. We're talking about these in the Facebook group. So if you're not a part of all of those would be another place to find out not only just about the webinars we're doing with Kathleen, but we've got one later this month on growing a leadership team and growing your young leaders. Also, for those of you that are members, remember the Digital Summit is coming up in March and Kathleen will be facilitating that. So it's a great way for you to get your digital folks getting to know Kathleen and learning from her for a full 2 days. So if an hour was amazing, imagine what 2 days is. So again, if you're a member and you're not familiar with our Digital Summit, shoot Cynthia an email and she can send you the details. Otherwise, we'll see you next month. Thanks for being here, you guys.